Oh. Interesting. I've been here before, a couple series ago. Matt Smith, Rory, Amy, River Song. Oh my god, is that? It is. Jenna Coleman. Even the diner looks the same.
What can I get you?
Might actually be the same set.
You're English.
You're not.
Scottish.
How did you get out here?
Magic. Or maybe I went to an airport and caught a plane.
Yeah, but how is this possible?
You've been traveling.
Yeah, from time to time.
Time to time, eh? Ah, it's that theme.
I think that it's called Clara.
Oh. Oh. Is that the place? Ooh, the bells.
Where has the doctor gone?
Back to the beginning.
Hey. Back to the beginning, eh? It is the cabin, yes. Oh my god, it is. It's the spot.
If any of them ever want to come.
Oh. She recognizes him.
They'll kill you.
Ah, the common folk. Interesting. The attire. Doesn't look alien at all. Just kind of looks like a western town.
Suggestions, sir.
Look at this, luxurious.
We could talk to him.
Words are his weapons.
When did they stop being ours?
Ah. Familiar ceilings, eh, Doctor? Look at these outfits. They look almost ridiculous out there, don't they? Four knocks. Ooh, Peter Capaldi at it again. Doesn't even need to speak. So essentially they recast him, right? Timothy Dalton's character, I believe? Correct me if I'm wrong. Maester Luwin, of course, from Game of Thrones.
Get off my planet.
No.
We needed to know. On my command!
I like him.
All of you. Every single one of you. How is that possible?
Missed.
What is it? I am Rassilon. The Redeemer!
Yeah, they recast him, yeah.
You're a long way from Khan.
At the end of everything, one must expect the company of immortals.
I'm going to need the use of an extraction chamber to talk to an old friend.
Ah, so that explains it. Whoa.
This way. I can save you.
Basically my place.
I was about to die.
My place.
I should be dead. Hang on, your place?
Yeah.
What do you mean, your place?
My place.
You don't mean... Gallifrey.
President, are you really going to take that risk?
You might. But Clara might have to step in. Oh, his new face? This could be cool.
Sorry, ma'am.
Hey, I've seen her before. In something.
Back to normal, am I? No one's ever made it back out of the cloisters.
Not quite, no one.
This way, I'm fairly sure.
Ah.
According to the stories, there's a secret way out if you find it. He stole the moon and the president's wife. It was the president's daughter. I didn't steal the moon, I lost.
Slipped up.
I'd know you anywhere. What happened to your coat? Velvety one, I like that one.
Yeah.
It's very doctory. Why?
Well, I can't be the doctor all the time.
What were you bargaining for?
What do you think?
For a chance at this?
I had to find a way to save you. I knew it had to be the Time Lords. They cost you your life on Trap Street, Clara. And I was going to make them bring you back. I just had to hang on in there for a bit.
How long was the doctor trapped inside the confession dell?
We think 4.5 billion years.
Oh.
He could have left any time he wanted. He just had to say what he knew.
Yeah. It was a self-imposed punishment, right? Like I said, penance as well, almost.
4.5 billion years. Why would you even do that? I was dead. dead and gone. Why? Why would you even do that to yourself? What do you think he's gonna do now?
Ah.
Why, he's stealing a TARDIS and running away. Bye.
Hey, classic design. Oh.
Time machine. I backed up a bit.
Get out of that TARDIS and face me, boy!
Boy.
Boy. Hey, I don't mind this design, man. Pretty cool. I mean, I've seen glimpses of it.
You'll have a heartbeat, or don't you trust me anymore?
No, not when you're shouting. What if the universe needs me to die?
The universe is over. It doesn't have a say anymore. We're standing on the last ember. The last fragment of everything that ever was. As of this moment, I'm answerable to no one.
Oh. Oh. She doesn't like the Doctor like this. She doesn't like seeing him like this. Four knocks.
It's always 4 knocks.
Always.
Me.
Oh. As in Maisie's character? She is immortal.
But the universe will become a very small place when I'm angry with you.
Mmm.
Small enough for you yet?
Ah, pretty.
Hello, me.
You don't seem surprised to see me.
Whoa.
Everything we should expect the company of immortals, so I've been told.
You don't like endings.
Ah, yeah. Oh.
She died, Doctor. She did. She died for who she was and for who she loved.
Hmm.
She felt where she stood. It was sad. We have no right to change who she was.
But she'll do.
Me.
Me, go to hell.
Ah. She's right about Clara. And how she ended up dying.
I'm going to wipe a memory of every last detail of me.
It'll be like our friendship never happened.
That may not be what she wants.
I've done it before.
Yeah.
Usually I do it telepathically.
He's speaking of Donna, right?
Trying to keep you safe.
Why?
Hmm.
Nobody's ever safe. I've never asked you for that, ever. These have been the best years of my life, and they are mine.
Hmm.
Tomorrow's promised to no one, Doctor, but I insist upon my past. I am entitled to that. It's mine.
Yeah? Yeah?
Let's do it. Like we've done everything else.
Together. Run like hell because you always need to. Laugh at everything. Because it's always funny.
No, stop it. You're saying goodbye. Don't say goodbye.
Never be cruel. And never be cowardly. And if you ever are, always make amends.
Stop it. Stop. Stop it.
It's okay. Don't you worry. I'll remember. Clara. Clara who?
Yeah.
She could be me.
Yeah.
Well, you know.
There's one thing I know about her. Just one thing. If I met her again, I would absolutely know.
Ah.
I think that we were here together once. I'm sure I remember. We were here.
Yeah. I've been here.
Amy and Rory. It was
Amy and Rory. And River Song.
What about your TARDIS? Hey? Have you found that yet?
No.
I'll never forget that moment. Matt Smith, the 11th, coming out of that door.
Clara told you in the cloisters. Maybe some of them become songs.
Hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful.
That'd be nice.
Wow. Yeah, so it was a bit of a recreation of the diner. Oh.
You know what that means? It means my death is a fixed event. The universe.
Fixed point in time.
Happening. I'm sorry. Why? Why does everybody think I am so scared? We all face a Raven in the end. That is the deal. Seeing as I'm not actually aging, there's still a tiny little bit of wiggle room, isn't there? Wiggle room. Wiggle room. Yeah. You know. But you know.
Do some things.
On the way. Gallifrey. The long way around.
The long way around. I was just about to say. Yeah, you just saw her. chills. Oh. Put it on. Put it on. Oh. You know what? I'm content that Clara has me. Maisie's me, that is. In those moments. The long way around, of course. Beautiful, beautiful shot. Oh. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, that's a wrap on Series 9 of Doctor Who. And it sets me up for Capaldi's final series, right? Series 11. Sorry, Series 11. Series 10. Series 11 is Jodie's run. Yeah, it's an interesting feeling. Because, you know, I've never been this close to essentially reaching the conclusion of this show, right? Yes, you know, it is continuing and it's coming back. And of course, you know, there's a new Doctor and yeah, you know, it promises to be a fantastic new era. But yeah, as far as my plans go, you know, yeah, like I've stated a few times at this point, the end of Capaldi's run is essentially going to be a bit of a break point for me. Again, that doesn't mean I'm not going to continue at some point. You know, it doesn't mean that I'm not interested in Jodie's run. I am interested. And of course, I know about that run and I know how fans, I guess long-time Doctor Who fans feel about that run, right? Still, you know, all of that being said, still, I am interested. I do want to see her portrayal of the Doctor. I like Jodie, right? I do. I like her as an actor. And, you know, around the time it was announced, I was kind of excited. I was excited about the idea of a female Doctor. Now, you know, I'm not saying that's some grand, I don't know, grand statement or anything, because here in this episode, you see that race and gender is, I don't know, it doesn't mean much, right? It's not meant to be a big deal. You see a Time Lord, right? I suppose he is considered a Time Lord, right? I mean, yeah, he has regeneration. Yeah, you see him regenerate because the Doctor shot him. How about that for out of character? How about that for breaking your own rules, right? You've got the lady from the Sisterhood of Karn who really calls him out on his shit, doesn't she? You know, I like her. I really like that character. She almost kind of feels like this not guardian figure, mentor figure. Someone that is clearly up there on the same level as the Doctor, right? She also confirmed that she's immortal. So I suppose the Sisterhood is meant to be an immortal set of beings, I suppose. I'm not sure if that information was given to me earlier or before this episode, but yeah, you know, it appears to be the case. But yeah, I like the dynamic that they have. You know, it's good to see. Sometimes it's good to see people that can speak to the Doctor in that manner. And again, call him out. Right? And she's not wrong. Like I said, she calls him out on his shit. The thing is, ultimately, he admits to himself, he understands, and he realizes that he just pushed it too far. He understands his mistake. And then, of course, he tries to put it right near the conclusion of the episode. But yeah, I think it's a great dynamic to have her from time to time. And yeah, I do hope to see her again. You know, maybe even in the next series before Capaldi departs, because I do like the dynamic these two actors have specifically as well, right? You know, I was immediately thinking of the Doctor back on Karn in the series opener. This series, Series 9. But yeah, going back to the whole race and gender aspect of it, you see here in Series 9, it's not a big deal. It's not made a big deal, and I like that. And you see it a few years later, there's a female Doctor in Jodie, and then there's a black Doctor that is coming in next after the 60th anniversary, right? But let's look at the finale as a whole and the structure of this finale. Yeah, it surprised me because, you know, as you know by now, I'm not the biggest fan of the bombastic, I don't know, part 2 of a 2-part finale. A lot of times it's a bit of a miss for me. And then, of course, there's that major cliffhanger ending to the last episode, right? Setting up his return to Gallifrey, right? And then, of course, my immediate thought was, okay, it's about to be something really quite grand, I suppose, but I'm really quite pleasantly surprised that it does not take that route. It does not go down that route, and it's actually much more intimate It's much more slow paced. It's a slow burn, right? Because ultimately, you have to look beyond things like Gallifrey. And listen, I'm not diminishing that aspect of it. I'm always excited about the notion of Gallifrey and how it kind of functions in the long-term storytelling aspect of Doctor Who. And I know there's a lot of fans, long-term fans of Doctor Who that really appreciate Gallifrey, of course. I'm not diminishing that. But at the end of the day, this episode is not about Gallifrey. It simply isn't, right? Gallifrey almost kind of serves as this background component of this episode that facilitates a lot of the other aspects of this episode. And of course, a major aspect of that being bringing back Clara, right? Again, I'll get to that, and I'll maybe tackle this idea of, her getting a new ending, right? Because ultimately, it alters our perception. It has now altered my final lasting impression and image of Clara, right? It's a happy one. And like I said, I'm really quite happy. I'm content that Clara is out there. Ultimately, she does become a doctor, right? Clara Who, as our doctor said at one point. So yeah, she's got her own TARDIS, right? Like a factory default TARDIS. Though it's not default anymore. The exterior is in the shape of that 50s or 60s diner, American diner. And, it was lovely to see that once again. Earlier I thought it's perhaps just being shot on the same set, but it was meant to be the exact same place that the Doctor's been to before, right? He even recalls Amy and Rory. And it was actually kind of lovely to have this Doctor, Capaldi's Doctor, actually say that out loud, right? I don't know, there was something really quite cozy and wholesome about that, to have this Doctor remember them, right? Because of course you associate Amy and Rory to Matt Smith's Doctor, right? But yeah, like I said, it's a lovely moment, but it's the exact same diner, but it's kind of recreated, right? And the Doctor even kind of understands, or he realized, okay, it's not the same diner because it's on the other side of the hill, but it's familiar locations for sure, right? Took me back to those really, really fun times I had. I believe the episode's called The Impossible Astronaut, right? Like I said, I'll never forget that moment of Matt Smith walking out of that door, but this time, that door leads to the new TARDIS, and it's Clara essentially saying her final goodbye to the Doctor, having one final look at the Doctor before she zooms off in the TARDIS, and she's got her own companion as well, essentially, in Maisie's Me, who I think actually gets quite a fantastic send-off as well, Maisie, because again, like I said, I know she does not come back after this. But yeah, those two are out there. And there's essentially this loophole. Yes, her death is set in stone. She is going to die. She does die, but like she said, much like the Doctor, she's about to take the long way around, right? So I love that. Right till the end, she really kind of channels the Doctor. So essentially, she's going to be out there alongside me as long as they want, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, they're at the end of the universe and its final stages, as it's imploding, or it's about to implode. But now that they have a TARDIS, they can go back in time, right? So yeah, they can do all kinds of things. Actually, it is possible that it's not the case at all, and maybe they can only kind of travel in the time that they're in at the moment, and they can kind of experience some of the beauty that's left over of this this universe on its last legs. I don't know, please clarify that for me, because to me, it felt like, okay, that they'll be time traveling together for as long as they want. And then of course, ultimately she'll return to that point to face the Raven once again, right? Because again, that is this fixed point in time, something that cannot change or cannot be changed, right? Even if the Doctor really, really badly wanted to change it, right? But yeah, my point about this not really even being about Gallifrey, let's kind of go back to that. Ultimately, this episode is about Doctor and Clara. It truly is. And both of them coming to terms, or essentially mainly the Doctor finally coming to terms with her death. Listen, the Doctor is still in the middle of his grief. He is still trying to handle his grief or tackle his grief throughout this episode. Because the Doctor in this episode, in Hellbent, is broken. He is traumatized, right? Like I said, he's still dealing with his grief. And then, of course, the inability to let Clara go drives the narrative of this episode, of this finale, right? Ultimately, him coming to terms and him understanding that, yeah, you know, he's pushed it too far. He's pushed it too far. But I do think by the end of it, he is able to kind of overcome some of that grief, come to terms with some of that grief, right? He certainly tackles it and then some in the last episode. So yeah, I do think it's a great follow-up to that episode, but it's not quite the masterpiece that was Heaven Sent. I mean, that is essentially one of the greatest of all time, possibly the greatest episode of all time for Doctor Who, and one of the greatest episodes in all of television. So of course, you know, I wasn't expecting the finale to, you know, go beyond that, right? To kind of be at the same level as that. So yeah, you know, I'm not, at this point, as I'm speaking of this finale, I'm actually really quite, I don't know, I'm happy about it. Because a lot of times I don't feel like this after a finale. A lot of times, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, it was all right. Because again, you know, I've mentioned my disconnect with some of the finales and the structure of these finales, the bombastic nature of these finales, you know, the blockbuster nature of these finales. And listen, I know and I understand that maybe for some people it might be a disappointment, this episode, because of that exactly. Maybe they're expecting something grand in relation to Gallifrey. Maybe a lot of people expected the entire episode or a majority of it to have Gallifrey as the major focus, right? Especially because, you know, it's been set up quite a bit at this point. You look at the Day of the Doctor, you look at the, I don't know, the magnitude of the things that happen by the end of the Day of the Doctor, right? And then, of course, you know, there's that iconic moment of Matt Smith, the 11th, saying that he's finally going home. And then, of course, you know, they set it up in this one as well, the confession dial earlier, you know, in the series opener. And then, of course, the incredible payoff in the last episode. But again, the use of the confession dial is really quite questionable. I mean, it's a monstrous use of it. But the thing is, the Doctor kind of goes toe-to-toe with the monstrous use of that confession dial, right? He puts himself through something monstrous. He puts himself through hell. And now you see in this episode that he's hell-bent, absolutely hell-bent on saving Clara, right? Gallifrey is an afterthought in this. It's all about getting Clara back, even if she didn't want to be back. And I think one of the standout scenes and one of the standout moments of fantastic acting is Clara, essentially realizing, okay, something's up here, something's off here. You know, he's not dressed as the Doctor. He's not even calling himself the Doctor at the moment, right? He even said, you know, I can't be the Doctor at all times. It makes that finale moment even more poignant, doesn't it? Run, you clever boy, right? And go be a doctor, something along those lines, right? There's this definitive closure on that line that's been a bit of a constant in Clara's run on the show. And you can just see in the Doctor's reaction, he knows that Clara is absolutely going to hate this, that he put himself through this. Something this monstrous, this self-imposed penance, this self-imposed punishment, put himself through something so unimaginably dark and hellish. So he rather not continue that conversation. But of course, she gets it out of the leader of the Sisterhood of Karn. Again, you'll have to excuse me because I'm not sure if I got a name for her. I think I might have had a name for her, but I cannot seem to recall the name at the moment. But she does not hesitate. She tells him, or sorry, not him. She tells Clara almost immediately. And as expected, it absolutely just crushes her. She is baffled beyond belief. She's frozen. She's frozen on the spot or in her spot, right? And then, you know, she's beginning to maybe tackle the idea of that. It's so out there. It is just so unimaginable, right? The billions of years aspect of it. And then, of course, you know, the really fantastic bit of acting kicks in. Jenna Coleman really sold that moment. Really sold that moment. And you feel it. I certainly felt it. Imagine a friend, someone you care about so deeply, put themselves through that just for you. after you left, that your death actually put that into motion or caused that to happen, right? Or it put your friend on a trajectory that made him go through that made him put himself through that, so he can have a chance, essentially, ultimately, to bring you back, even though you requested that, no, I've accepted my death, I've accepted that this is my end, and I kind of got myself here, I put myself in this situation, and I'm going to accept it, right? One of the strong elements of that goodbye, or Clara's goodbye, or so I thought, in Face the Raven, is that she ultimately understood that everything that she did led to this point, right? There's this really, this really commendable acceptance of it all. That yes, she was reckless, and that she wanted to be more like the Doctor, and ultimately it landed her in this spot. Clara had closure. She did. She accepted her death. The Doctor did not. He could not. Right? And again, a lot of this episode, it's quite the lengthy episode as well, an hour-long runtime. And I think it actually, for the most part, uses it quite effectively. Sure, maybe you could have edited a few moments here and there, make it a bit more tighter, I suppose. But yeah, I think that intimate and introspective approach is really quite effective in this long-term format. But that being said, again, that type of thing is not for everyone, especially if you had other thoughts, or if you had other expectations of this finale, especially if you wanted a lot of it to be focused on Gallifrey and the Time Lords and all of that aspect of it. Then I can see how this could also end up being a slog for many, right? As far as reaction to the episode itself goes, I found myself just taking a lot of it in. There's not a lot of reaction moments, I suppose, and that's just how it is. Sometimes you just kind of have to sit there and just watch it, right? You can't just be artificially manufacturing reaction moments, right? That, at least that's my take on this type of content. But the thing is, a really cool thing about doing this for 6, almost 7 years at this point, is that a lot of people that have been around for a long time, I suppose, and of course, it's lovely to have many of you around for years at this point. I feel that a lot of people, they just kind of, after years of experiencing my content, they kind of have this understanding of my thought process. It's not exclusive just to this. It's essentially true for a lot of my content. People can just tell by my expressions, just by subtle expressions, even nods, and I don't know. I just feel that people really kind of understand my reaction, even if I'm not saying anything. There's also another thing that I can see people maybe not liking about this episode, that once again, it's this major focus on Clara, right? There's a lot of people that like Clara, and there's clearly a lot of people that do not like Clara as a character, and how important she clearly goes on to become. So I know for many people, this is not going to be the type of episode that's going to be fun for them, right? And, this is based on stuff I've come across in my own comment section and stuff I've kind of heard since kind of beginning the era of Clara as a companion. She's not everyone's cup of tea. So I can see how some people might not like that she's making a lot of the calls, important calls and decisions in this episode, right? But I look at it as something really quite important and really quite refreshing, that indeed she does have agency. And I think the Doctor really needed that, because for long chunks of this episode, you see that he doesn't care, right? He doesn't care. He just wants to save Clara. But ultimately, he gets to that point. He gets to it. He understands that he pushed it too far. He crossed the line. And now one of them essentially has to go, right? And that kind of sets into motion that really emotional goodbye at the end. I mean, it essentially feels like a regeneration speech even, right? And it's interesting because, like I said earlier, I did get a regeneration. And yeah, it's quite a dark moment, man, because the Doctor shot someone. He is so against firearms, right? It's a gun, but it's a special type of gun. But ultimately, it's a gun nonetheless. He pointed the gun and he shot the gun. Yes, granted, he shot at someone, or he shot at someone who has a regeneration. But listen, the regeneration it's not just a simple cop-out. There is a physical element to regeneration. There is pain attached to regeneration. As far as as far as us, the audience goes, regeneration is really something quite impactful and emotional and hurtful, right? Painful at times, right? To experience. So for him to do that to that man, and this isn't even a man that is against him. This is a man that was really on his side. This is a man that was so respectful of the Doctor. This is a man that was immediately by his side, right? I mean, the Doctor officially became the Lord President, right? He took up the other guy's spot, who was essentially recast. Timothy Dalton did not come back, and I didn't really see those laser gloves of his. I mean, at one point it kind of felt like he's about to do it again. You know, he puts up his claw, or not his claw, his glove or his hand, and I think he says something like, "Gallifrey is mine," and no, it's not. I mean, he swiftly gets banished, and then of course many of the members, or all of them, actually get banished. Members of the High Council. And as I am on the topic, let's kind of focus a bit on Gallifrey and the Time Lords. Yes, you know, ultimately it's a bit of an afterthought, right? You could even kind of argue that it's used as a plot device to bring Clara back. But I think there's a lot of positives as well about Gallifrey. You know, I think Gallifrey is used quite effectively in this as an exposition tool, right? You get a lot of fantastic insight here from the Doctor's past just by being here, just by talking about his childhood, right? The things he got up to and how all of this hybrid stuff kind of came to be, right? How he found himself in the cloisters, right? And then, you know, I kind of get a bit more of an understanding for some of this stuff from Gallifrey, right? The cloister bells, and, you know, that kind of gives me context about the TARDIS and the cloister bell, right? It's iconic at this point. I've experienced this so many times, going all the way back to series 1. But you also kind of get to see the heart of Gallifrey. You see the common folk. You see the humble beginnings of the Doctor. You know, he's not from that high society. I mean, yes, he becomes a part of that, but, you know, that's not his origin. I see that cabin, that iconic cabin at this point that I've seen in the Day of the Doctor, that I've seen in Listen, right? It's a beautiful location, and it just feels so integral to the Doctor's identity. And just, again, his childhood as well. You know, him returning there, I felt that. I felt that moment. To me, it felt like a big moment, right? And then, of course, that lovely lady that came in who recognized him almost immediately, of course, even though he has a different face. Beautiful, just beautiful touch. And I suppose that's the same lady from Listen, right? The one that was speaking. So I suppose she's kind of like a guardian figure. And then, of course, I see some of the common folk out there. And, you know, there's certainly quite a Western approach to this episode, especially earlier on. You know, Rachel really kind of leans into that, be it in the States, in that cold open, be it here in Gallifrey, in this region of Gallifrey that I've seen a few different Doctors come into at this point. And then you really kind of get to see the respect that a lot of people have for the Doctor and the things he's done for Gallifrey, right? I don't know. There was something really quite nice about him just being there with the common folk and them applauding him and appreciating him, right? He literally draws the line, you know, sets a marker, sends a message. And of course, you know, it's a great scene. He does not say anything until, of course, the Lord President finally shows up, right? He's like, nah, I'm going to make this man come down from his high tower. And, you know, even though it's so luxurious and really fantastic to look at, right? The costume design and just the attire of the Time Lords, it's only, I don't know, it only looks good in the right setting, you know, up there in those high towers, in the boardrooms, essentially. That, you know, that's the place for it, right? It looks so fancy and nice. But out there in the open, in front of the common folk, it just looks so ridiculous, didn't it? You know? I don't know. I just feel like the Doctor might have been looking at that and must have been thinking, do you even understand how silly you look at the moment? I mean, that's my take on it, at least. Maybe some of you don't think they look silly out there. I thought, you know, maybe it was a little bit by design to put them out there in that full costume, in that full attire, coming to such a humble cabin. I don't know. That's my take on it. And also, speaking of that cold open and the Doctor showing up at that diner and then Clara being there, you know, it's an interesting cold open. It's quite the setup. And I said it felt kind of strange as well because the lead into the intro, just, I don't know. I was like, huh? I mean, the whole situation is quite bizarre, isn't it? But of course, you know, us as the audience knows, okay, they are going to explain it over the span of this finale. But, at that point, once they do start kind of talking to each other, you're kind of left thinking, okay, they don't seem to know each other, right? It's almost as if they're meeting for the first time. But of course, in hindsight, you see that Clara is actually having a bit of a really sad experience, quite a painful experience, because the whole time she knows all about it. It's essentially her long goodbye, her final conversation with the doctor. But the twist, or essentially the really interesting take on this, is that it's been reversed. It's the doctor finding himself on the other end. Usually you kind of picture the doctor doing that kind of thing. And, there's parallels to how Donna's story kind of ends and her actual ending, right? Her having to lose all of her memory about the experiences she had since she met the doctor, right? There, it's incredibly sad. It is. And listen, of course, none of us actually wanted Donna to die, right? It kind of had to be done. But, there is that notion of her not having the choice, her not having that agency to make the choice herself. The doctor made that choice for her. But through Clara, you see that it's kind of flipped, right? She does have agency. She holds her ground, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. I like that she made a lot of these choices, and the doctor finally kind of understands and comes to. I believe the line of dialogue was, "I am entitled to my past." That these last few years have been the best of her life, right? And that she could never even imagine erasing any of that, the memory of any of that, right? So I like that. I actually like that quite a bit. But yeah, ultimately it's switched, right? It's the doctor who loses his memory of just some specifics about Clara, right? Donna just completely lost all of it, right? She essentially goes back to her old life. And that's one of the things that hurts so much, right? All of that development and progress just kind of gets tossed out the window, right? Again, it's a tricky situation, but that's the thing that hurts so much. But that being said, the 60th is around the corner, right? A few months from now, Donna Noble is coming back, and I'm incredibly excited for that. And again, I hope I can experience that as it airs, as it drops. I think it's multiple episodes. It's not just one grand 60th special, right? It's broken up into 3, I believe. And of course, it's kind of sad, isn't it? And it's really bittersweet, right? That conversation that plays out at the diner, him trying to remember Clara, this person that was in his life. And, there's that one moment. He said, I know one thing, or if I know one thing, it's that if I saw her again in front of me, I'd know it's her, right? See, a part of me for a split moment thought maybe he actually figured it out. Maybe he understood that indeed this is Clara. But he decided, and maybe it's like a mutual understanding at that point, right? Because it gets quite an emotional reaction out of Clara. You see, she's got tears, and she kind of has to turn to the other side. But for a split moment, I thought maybe the doctor does understand or realize, oh, Clara, right? But then they kind of choose to just leave it at that, right? Because they both understood that, they have to part, right? That it cannot continue. But no, I don't think he actually remembered that being Clara, right? But you see that moment really, it was a painful moment for Clara, right? To listen to the doctor, right? To just kind of experience that. But that being said, he almost immediately sees her face on the TARDIS. So did he recognize at that point, maybe? And I'm speaking of that really beautiful mural that Riggsy painted onto the TARDIS that disappears essentially as the TARDIS disappears, right? It's a beautiful ending as well. Him re-entering the TARDIS. It almost really truly felt like a grand reset. The TARDIS even gives him a new screwdriver. He puts a jacket back on, some stunning photography on display once again. Beautiful. And to me, there's this distinct feeling of, okay, now all of us are ready for the next chapter. The doctor is ready for the next chapter, right? And the next chapter is the Christmas special, I suppose. And then, of course, his final run in Series 10. But yeah, let's kind of go back to Face the Raven, Clara's ending, or so I thought. Now, the question here is, does this dilute that ending? Does it undo a lot of that, right? I think there's a case to be made for that. Now, she's not dead anymore. Even though, yes, technically, ultimately, she is going to die at some point, once she returns. But yeah, as of this point, the lasting image, the lasting impact is that she's out there. Her and me are out there for as long as they want to be, right? So it does kind of change it, doesn't it? Now, my take on it is that it's not egregious, but it does kind of alter something definitive. Now, listen, I'm a big fan of leaving endings as they are, right? In this day and age, nothing is kind of left untouched anymore, because now it's all about reboots. It's all about sequels and prequels. Prequels I don't mind as much, but of course, it's inevitable that every single major IP is going to be getting sequels and remakes and continuations of definitive endpoints and building on those endpoints. I mean, let's be honest, there is something similar happening with the reintroduction of Donna in the 60th anniversary, right? The reintroduction of Tennant. Sooner or later, they always come back. I mean, yes, I'm incredibly happy, like many of you, but it's the truth. They could not leave it untouched. They could not leave it. They could not leave it as Tennant's goodbye at the end of Time Part 2, or his final appearance in The Day of the Doctor, and they could not leave Donna's story as its definitive conclusion either. They bring him back. So yeah, of course, in a sense, it alters Clara's actual ending from Face the Raven. I mean, I'm saying actual. This is the actual ending, right? Up until that point, 2 episodes ago, I thought that was the ending for Clara. But that being said, maybe I was on the right track. Maybe I did have the right idea, because it didn't feel definitive to me. I do remember mentioning that, yeah, it feels like maybe there could be more to it. Maybe this isn't the definitive final appearance for Clara. And then, of course, since then, I've seen her in Heaven Sent as a cameo appearance, and then, of course, as a full-on major appearance and final send-off, the swan song for Jenna Coleman's Clara. And it does kind of undo that notion of this actually being one of the first few, or the only essentially on-screen companion death that I've experienced so far, right? It kind of takes away from that, doesn't it? Yes, I know, technically it's still set in stone, but come on. The ending there is clear cut. They're going to be out there for a long, long time, as long as they want, right? So Clara is out and about still, or some form of Clara, right? Because she's physically there, but there's certain elements that are not present anymore, right? It's between heartbeats. But I like the idea of that, right? The sci-fi element of that. One example I have of something I really, really disliked in terms of a continuation after a definitive ending, Breaking Bad. One of the all-time greats. It's one of the greatest television shows of all time. It's just phenomenal, incredible, right? But they decided to do a sequel, a continuation. It was that Netflix film, right? And okay, maybe I shouldn't get into spoilers, but for those who know, I'm sorry, but I was not a fan of that. I was not a fan of the choice to actually continue from that ending. I mean, I don't know, man. That's just, even now sitting here, I'm still baffled that they made the choice to do that. And then beyond that, I had some issues with the film itself as well, right? Again, there's not much I can talk about in terms of going into details. I don't want to spoil it for anyone. And also in terms of Maisie's character, I think she had a lot of good points in this one as well, especially that really fantastic scene that happens right outside of the TARDIS, right? After the four knocks, of course. I think at one point she said something like that they have no right to change the person she is or used to be, right? Of course, he tells her almost immediately to go to hell, right? Because again, he's not at that point just yet. He's not seeing straight just yet. And then, of course, there's a lot of talk about the hybrid. They kind of go back and forth, and ultimately it kind of lands on, half human, half Time Lord. And then, of course, the human aspect being Clara and the Time Lord aspect being the Doctor. So that kind of wraps up the whole hybrid plot. But then, of course, that reminds me of Missy, right? So am I going to see Missy again at some point? I'm sure I'll get to see her again at some point. Once again, there's mention of her, that ultimately she put all of this into motion. She's not even present, but she's the one who set this up in the first place, Clara and the Doctor, because she wanted someone like Clara to be a companion. And of course, there's a lot of really beautiful moments like the Doctor playing the Clara theme, right? There's a lot of callbacks even. I think, one of those themes is all the way back from series 1. The first time I kind of get to hear the Doctor's theme, I think. Yeah, one of those themes was certainly something from a long time ago. But yeah, I think I'll sign off there for now, folks. yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to see the next phase of Capaldi's run, of the 12th Doctor's run, and how it kind of builds on these first two series of Capaldi. Right? There's been a lot of really fantastic stuff that I've experienced in his first two series in terms of his own growth and character progression. So I'm really quite excited to see the focus of this final run, of this final series for Capaldi in terms of the direction his character heads into. But yeah, that's all for now, folks. If you enjoyed that, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in timer-based full length or early access, consider checking out the Patreon page and potentially supporting the channel. The links are in the description and the pinned comment, also links to social media, if that's your thing. Right then, thank you so much for joining me, folks, and thank you for your time, because time is precious. It really is, isn't it? And I do hope to see you again soon for the Christmas special. And then, of course, Series 10. Until then, take it easy.